Joining me now for this bonus episode of Locked On Gators, again for the third time this week, third day in a row, actually, is
Let's
John
do it.
Garcia, Sports Illustrated's Director of Football Recruiting and Locked On's Recruiting Insider. And before we even get into the content, I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Locked On College. Terms and conditions apply. And John, yesterday we had you talking about Kelby Collins. Today we're sticking on the defensive line with another scheduled commit, but at the time of recording this, as far as I know, it's just Sunday. That's all we know. It's just Sunday. But Kamran James is announcing his commitment later today. What has his recruitment been like?
It's been one of the fastest rising recruitments, not only in the state of Florida, but really in the country in this class of 2023. A guy who really burst onto the scene during the offseason, which we don't see a whole lot this in this day and age. But look, he's an Olympia kid, not the first stop when you go travel in Orlando and you're looking for high school talent, not your first stop, but certainly schools began stopping by there at a high rate later in the spring because, yeah, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, everybody jumped in on this kid once his tape got out. Yeah, 6'6" player, basketball background, just kind of this raw, interesting defensive lineman, about 260, 265 right now. Again, power forward on the court, who makes plays on both ends of the court as well. So you get this interesting athletic foundation, and then people went to go see him and they verified, yeah, 6'5", 6'6", and then the offers just really never slowed down. In fact, we don't even know going into the commitment, Brandon, how many offers he has or who the finalists are. Like, in his mind. In our mind, we know it's kind of just Florida, Georgia. We expect it to be an outdoor cocktail party kind of commitment. But yeah, Alabama's jumped in. A bevy of SEC programs have jumped in. So who knows how many hats he'll have on the table Sunday when he makes that decision. That will be maybe another fascinating thing to see play out. But kids have been busy in the Orlando area, right? Aiden Mizell, Cedric Baxter comes off the board. All the Osceola guys came off the board. It's been a busy time in that area, but James is probably the fastest riser of that entire group because 12 months ago, we weren't talking about him. We didn't know very much about him as a football prospect. So all these schools that are jumping in, Brandon, are taking a chance, right? This is a raw, long prospect who has a ton of room to fill out. So does he become this 295-pound, Gervon Dexter type of guy, or does he stay relatively lean? There's a lot to look at from a physical standpoint, but I think every school is willing to take that gamble and say, hey, we'll mold him into what we think works best for him down the line. And that's why his recruitment has really apexed in the middle part of this offseason. And now it's going to end right after that. Usually kids have this big rise and they kind of ride that wave for months, 6 months. Like, hey, let me enjoy Kirby Smart and Billy Napier and Nick Saban trying to get a hold of me. Let me enjoy this part of it. He's like, no, let's get this thing done. And going into that decision, you got to feel good about the Gators, right? I mean, Orlando's an important area to that program. We know historically and in terms of tangibly, James has taken like 5 or 6 visits to the swamp, including an official visit. Georgia did get an official as well, but just one other trip, I believe, beyond that point. So the interest tells us that Gators are going to be tough to beat in this race. And then here's the funny thing, and maybe this is an indication of how new to the recruiting process he is. He's told multiple outlets he's got a visit scheduled to Florida for September, but he's committing in August. So, I mean, usually that means, hey, I'm probably going to commit to the school I'm telling you I'm going to visit a month from now. So, yeah, I think Florida should feel pretty comfortable going into this verbal commitment. Look, stranger things have happened, especially in the state of Florida. We have the best football talent and the best personalities on top of it. So there could be twists and turns here, but I think Cameron's a pretty straightforward guy from what we can gather. And yeah, the Gators are certainly the favorites going into this call.
As the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find people that you want to interview faster and for free. If you've never used LinkedIn Jobs before, I highly recommend it. With simple tools like screening questions, it makes it easy for you to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster, and nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn every week. So you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Do you think the Florida Gators will win 7 or more games this year? Do you think they'll win 6 or less games this year? I think they'll win 7 or more. So I went to BetOnline and I bet the over because the Gators win total is currently set at 6.5. Easy money. If we're being honest, it's easy money. Simple as that. I've been using BetOnline for years. Couldn't be happier with it. It's got football, baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey, tennis, which is dead to me because of last week. It was a rough one. I'm just gonna let you know that. Table tennis, darts, economics, politics, alien invasions. It's got fair warning. It's gonna get high pitched. Anything you want. Check out betonline.net. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn all about the trends and action. Check out BetOnline. It's where the game starts. Yeah, and you mentioned that he plays for Olympia, so it's one of the schools where not high on the priority list to go evaluate talent. And just how not I don't know how to word this necessarily, but how much harder is it if you're a talented player from that school to kind of get recognized? Because I've made it very like I'm from New York City. We don't have good football players here. That's just not what we do. So like I've seen good football players go completely unrecognized because they're in a bad team in a bad football state. So if you're in a fantastic football state like Florida, but one of the lesser schools, how hard is it to get recognized?
Yeah, people don't realize that's a great question, Brandon. People don't realize how hard it is for prospects at those schools because, like you said, when you're assigning you're the head coach and you're saying, hey, it's spring ball, all right, you're going to Orlando for 3 days. You got to hit these 7 schools. Olympia is not in that first grouping that you're going to lay out normally. So yeah, I do think it's harder for some of these smaller schools to emerge prospect wise, just because there are so many great schools in Orlando, Tampa, Miami, Jacksonville, etc., that you're just gonna go see as a college head coach. So yeah, I think that's part of the reason why it took James until this part of his high school career to really blow up, because people didn't make that stop a priority earlier when he was still very tall, very lean, and emerging as a basketball, football, two sport kind of guy. So I do think that's part of the reason it's taken this long. But yeah, it's not like everybody scours the entire state of Florida. So yeah, there are always sleepers in the state because there's so much action at the very top that the second tier of Florida gets covered and exposed kind of like the first tier of states outside of the top 10, and I think when you get into those regards, you watch an NFL game and you're like, this kid's from Florida, but he went to what school? Like, oh, he went to Toledo, or he went to South Alabama, and you're like, oh, how in the world did that happen? Because look, there's a limited amount of time these coaches can hit the road. So if you're a late bloomer like a Kamran James, yeah, you might get overlooked because of circumstance. So yeah, there's only a certain amount of time that these coaches have to do this. And remember, on top of that, recruiting is going younger and younger, right? Our number one prospect at SI, Dante Moore, his first offer came from Michigan in 7th grade. So a lot of these recruiting boards get done early in these kids' high school career. So there's also not a lot of space and scholarships for some of these late bloomers on top of the inability to be seen relative to where you live. So there's so many things stacked against some of these prospects, generally. So it's a really great question to ask. And that's why you see, watch an NFL game and it's an FCS guy, a Division II guy making big plays. And yeah, there's still sleepers that get overlooked because, these resources are thinner and thinner, and coaches are spread thinner and thinner as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, if you brought up Toledo, so I get to say this. Florida kid that went overlooked and went to Toledo, went to the NFL, Deontay Johnson. They're the
There
Steelers
you
right
go.
now. Just signed a contract extension. Thank you so much, John, for coming through as always. people will get to see you again later this week because, we're going to have you on Locked On Gators, and you're going to be with every Locked On College show, it seems. Catch John on Twitter at @JohnGarcia_JR. He's Sports Illustrated's Director of Football Recruiting and Locked On's Recruiting Insider.